Hello, friends. I am so excited to share with you a sacred journey. This is where I will be presenting some phases of a wonderful book that was written by Phil Cosino called The Art of Pilgrimage. I've used this book many, many times, not just for traveling and making travel sacred, but also it has a lot of gems and insights and tips for how to navigate through the things that are going on in your life, whether it's a relationship change or a job change or moving to another area. It is truly a way to make it sacred. And when you embrace some of these recommendations, it takes you from the mundane of life to a more exciting and passionate way of living. I am also a sacred expressive artist, and I have decided to create 8 specific paintings that will be in alignment with this sacred journey. So I will be presenting those as well with the symbolisms and the information that came through to me while I was working through this book, through my travels to sacred sites and just plain life. And I hope you will enjoy this as well. So we will be here for about 60 minutes, maybe a little longer, depending on how much I talk. But I want to make sure that you are sitting down. I would highly recommend right now, if you can, grab a journal or a tablet and a pen to write with, because there's going to be so much information along the way on this sacred journey. And I will be asking you some deep-seated questions that will help you in where you are in life. And you might find yourself maybe referring back to this recording for more information because there is a lot here. Okay, so I want you to get yourself comfortable and maybe even grab a glass of water or a cup of tea. If you feel like pausing this at this time to go grab those things, now's the time to do it. Okay, so let's begin with the sacred journey. First of all, I want to explain the picture that is showing right now. And this is a picture of me when I was on my trip to Egypt in 2018. And we had flown into Aswan, Egypt, and after some touring and visiting temples and areas around that area, we hired a driver and a guide to drive us from Aswan to Luxor. And this is the temple of Edfu, which is along the Nile River. Well, what's amazing about this sacred moment is that the guide asked me to follow him and back in through the temple. And this is where the pharaoh and the priest, the high priest, would only be allowed to go. And as you can see on the walls, there's all kinds of carvings with information about the culture, life that's going on at that time, language, things of that sort, myths. And one of the things that he had asked me to do was to put my hands out in front of me. And he said, I want you just to close your eyes and tap into what you're feeling. What are you sensing? Well, the very first thing I started noticing was that there was this vibration going through my hands, and then it was starting to move up my arms and through my body. And then also, I was getting these flashes of lights that were coming behind my eyes. So even though my eyes were closed, I was getting these flashes of light. But what was amazing was it was a very, very, very hot day. And I felt like this rush of cold water over top of my head, down across my body, and it just cooled me right down. And it was the most pleasant, peaceful, wonderful feeling that I have ever felt. And since then, since 2018, I have noticed that there are specific sacred sites that I have gone to. And if I close my eyes and tap into the energy of that area, I will have the same experience of that cold rushing water. So, what was also amazing about this time is that my guide, when I opened my eyes, he said, he asked me what I was feeling. And he said, well, I want to tell you a message I got while you were doing that. And he said, I had an image of you healing other people using herbs and oil. He said he saw me in ancient Egypt preparing deceased bodies with rituals and ceremonies and honoring them by rubbing oils on their feet and chanting holy messages and blessings. Well, what he didn't know was in 2018, I was a licensed massage therapist back in the US and a Reiki practitioner. And I do use blessings and prayers during my um, practices with my clients. And I was rubbing oil on bodies. So I was already doing what he was envisioning. So talk about some synchronicity there. Um, I feel that I was also given a message that I was to continue to help people and honor their sacred journey. And so by through my travels and all the practices that I continue to do, I can help others in this lifetime. By the way, my name is Kelly Hayweiser, and I am a sacred traveler, a sacred expressive artist, an author, a holistic lifestyle coach, and a healing practitioner. And tonight we are going on a sacred pilgrimage. So when we talk about a pilgrimage, I always think of the Camino de Santiago or the Way of St. James. And although I have never walked this Camino, it is on my bucket list and it is one of my passions that I eventually want to do. I have talked to many people about the Camino and I have inspired people to walk the Camino for their journey. And I stepped onto this through just reading multiple books at the library. But there's also a movie called The Way with Martin Sheen and Amelia Estevez. And Amelia Estevez wrote and directed this as well as acted in it. And it is truly an amazing movie. And there are multiple movies out there, but this one is truly inspiring. So I highly recommend that you get The Way. And it is about a father who um, is not too connected with his son who wants to travel all around the world and run after his passions. And he unfortunately passes away while he's beginning the Camino, which is a 700-mile trek from France to Spain. And um, Martin Sheen plays his father as well as in the movie, and he goes to France to pick up his son's remains, and out of the blue decides that he is going to walk the Camino. And the Camino is a very deep spiritual pilgrimage that has been around for thousands of years, and people have found miraculous healings, insights, questions to problems, just transformation in life. So when you travel around the world, one of the many caminos and there's different ones all over the world. Um, you can also go on a pilgrimage in your living room if you prefer. And that is just connecting with your inner self. And the true pilgrim is a person who decides they're going to lose their self. They're just going to get rid of all the garbage, all the things that they've been holding on to that no longer serve them, and start to truly rediscover who they are. And it is truly a personal journey for each person. And so we're going to continue on with the idea of the pilgrimage. A pilgrimage is so much more than a road from point A to point B. And in Phil Costano's book, The Art of Pilgrimage, he writes that a pilgrimage is a kind of journey that moves us from mindless to mindfulness, to soulless to soulful travel. And I truly agree with that, that when you're connecting with your moments in life from a mindfulness state of mind, it connects you to your soul. As a facilitator of mindfulness, I also agree that one's life's experience provide them with the profound opportunity to embark on these magical and mystical journeys that connect them to their sacred soul space. And this is beyond the normal expectations of the world. Um, if you think about it, we are the Indiana Jones of our lives. And by the way, here's a picture of me in the Temple of Isis in Egypt. And of course, I had my Indiana hat on and decided to do that just to kind of remind me to step back and be more mindful on my journey. Egypt had many amazing sights, sounds, and feelings beyond our normal American lives. And here is Egypt that I tapped into, the sights of mule-drawn carts, and seeing children playing on tall trash piles, but also riding mules to school. I saw tuk-tuks running from place to place. I could feel the dry, sandy air from the desert, the sounds of the daily coming to prayer over the loudspeakers, and also the feeling from the bustling markets of people that were bartering for their products and their wares. And then also the magic of the Nubian community with their lives on the Nile. And when you open yourself up to what life has to offer, life will provide. So here is a picture of the Nile in Aswan, and I am actually sitting on an outdoor patio at the Cataract Hotel, where Agatha Christie sat and wrote the book Death on the Nile. And I captured the right moment as well. This was the sunset, and you can see the felucca boats on the Nile. And that day, I had spent the day with my travel partner and a Nubian captain taking us up and down the Nile. And it was absolutely wonderful and magical. Just need to bounce back one more. Here we go. Okay. Another major part of a pilgrimage is connecting to your ceremonies, your rituals, some signs and some symbols that you might see along the way. One important symbol of the pilgrimage is the scallop shell. Here's one that I found in Bogota, Colombia. And since then, I have found this scallop shell not only on near churches and temples, but all over the world, in Germany, and like I said, in Colombia. It's amazing how many people are walking some type of Camino. Talking about the symbol of the sacred shell, this is the painting that I created called the Pilgrimage. And as you can see, it's designed around the scallop shell. And there is a lot of symbolisms that are in this painting that I will see a tad of it throughout my other 7 sacred journey paintings. This piece is also an embodiment of freedom, strength, protection, and rebirth. And the shell's radiating lines that are leading from the mountain, those pathways, is to self-discovery and a symbolism of the unity of pilgrims from all over the world who decide to walk a sacred path. And yes, when you walk on a physical pilgrimage, you are meeting many, many souls along the way. That's part of the community of it. But think about it in your life. How many souls are you connected to that are helping you and supporting you on your life's journey? Okay. My screen is a little touchy, but here we go. Okay. Here is the primary Egyptian symbol of the life called an Ankh, and it is depicted as a cross with a loop on the top and commonly known as the key of life or the key to the Nile. And this piece was given to me by a little Egyptian boy when I was traveling near Luxor. And I keep it with me, and it's on my sacred table. And it reminds me of that moment and his smiles and that time where I just felt more and more connected. A pilgrimage should shake you and transform you. It should challenge your thoughts, your ideas, your beliefs, and your values. And it should make you want to experience so much more in life. This picture here is not mine, but it is a picture of the pyramids. And I will provide you with an actual picture from my trip. When you start a pilgrimage, an important step is to always set your intentions. No matter if you're going on a pilgrimage or you're just beginning life and you're making a change, the first thing you should do is set your true intentions. So you want to ask yourself, what do I want to experience? And why is it important that I experience this in life? And what do I expect to gain? And as we talked about, a pilgrimage is about losing yourself. What is it that you expect to lose? What do you plan to get rid of in life? So start asking your questions and maybe even write those down in your journal. What do I want to gain and what do I want to lose? And what are some of my intentions? One intention might be to experience something before it is actually gone, like seeing animals that may become extinct, like the African forest elephant or various turtles or the black rhino, maybe even some gorillas or some orangutans. And you might wish to visit areas that may no longer be here in the future, like the Great Barrier Reef or the magnificent glaciers. And this past, in 2024, I got a chance to go to Australia and see the Great Barrier Reef. That was on my bucket list. And also, when I traveled for a month in New Zealand, I wanted to see the glaciers. Now, this picture specifically is a French Joseph Glacier. And as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, there's an arrow that points, and that is the glacier. And I am standing down in the riverbed at a mile marker that shows where that glacier used to be 20 years ago. So within 20 years, that glacier has receded up that mountain that far. And not only that, but just recently in the past couple days, and it's, by the way, it's end of August 2025. I was listening to a report on NPR where they were talking to a scientist who was saying about how uh, areas with glaciers are seeing a major impact from climate change and of these magnificent landforms receding, and we're losing them. So it's very sad. You might also want to consider what you need to experience within yourself that may be disappearing. So we talk about glaciers and animals, but for yourself, what are some things that we start to notice that disappear? Maybe it's our youth as we grow older. Maybe it's our childlike playfulness and lightness. Um, it could be our passions that we used to have and we've given up on those, or dreams. And it could be our health that we're noticing a major change in and we're starting to lose. So, talking about our health, another intention would be to take a pilgrimage that connects you to healing on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. And here's a picture of the Healing Chapel in Chimeo, New Mexico, that I visited in 2023. And there I saw many pictures of pilgrims who had seen miraculous miracles of healing, and also many, many, many crutches hanging on the walls and leaning up against the walls of, again, pilgrims that had experiencing profound healings. So when you walk into the chapel, in the back, in this small grotto, is this just plain area with dirt on the floor, and it's kind of dug out. And that dirt in the chapel is considered the holy dirt. And that is what they're saying helps with healing. And I do have a little sample of that dirt. And yes, I have used it a few times to rub on myself and do prayers. I've also included in some of my sacred paintings when I want to um, embellish it with some type of healing. So I'm going to ask you, what kind of healing pilgrimage would you consider? Another intention may come to you based on a longing. And here is the Christ Church of the Good Shepherd in Lake Takapo, New Zealand. So I saw this picture in a travel magazine many, many decades ago, and I had this longing to always want to go there and see it. It just, the colors were so vibrant. It just felt so peaceful. And my pilgrimage to New Zealand was also inspired by the movie The Lord of the Rings, which was filmed there. And so if you've seen the Lord of the Rings movies, you know what I'm talking about. And what's wonderful is when you're driving through New Zealand, you are just in continuous daily wow, wow, wow. And then all of a sudden you can actually feel like, oh, that's where our Aragon was, and oh, that's where Frodo was. And it's just an amazing experience. And this magical country is one of my true favorite adventures. And it has brought me back my passion for wanting to be more in nature, to enjoy the landscapes, which I used to do a lot of in my youth. So I had lost that over time. And I wanted to bring that back. And I told myself that when I got back to the United States, if I could find a forest bathing or forest therapy or something that would connect me more on a spiritual side to nature, I would do that. And so just recently, August 1, I am now certified as a forest therapy guide practitioner. And I can say it has changed my life. I am now being more diligent about getting out there in nature and just embracing it. So this longing that I talk about is the number one phase in Phil Cosino's book, The Art of Pilgrimage. And let's do a quick review of those phases. So we'll be talking about the longing, the call, the departure, and the pilgrim's way. We will talk about the labyrinth, the arrival, the bringing back of the boon, and then I've added my own special one, and that's gratitude. Everything in life we need to be grateful for. So let's begin with the longing. This is the greatest urges and yearnings that dwell within us, and there can be so many of them. And my painting, which I call The Virgin, is a mandala manifested by the archetype, the Virgin, which represents a time of self-discovery. And we have many urges and earnings that are so powerful. And this painting actually kind of represents all those different things that are kind of out in the universe. We've just kind of sent them out there, and we haven't really grasped onto one of them. We have just kind of let them go. And they can help us to truly, truly find our authentic selves by connecting to those longings and what makes us happy. So when I was a teenager, you would have found me in the library. I worked in the library, I helped out, and I was always reading books about Egypt and the pyramids and aliens. And then you, of course, add in the movie The Raiders of the Lost Ark, and my longing became a major passion. I wanted to travel to sacred sites. So talk about a longing and a yearning. And I always ask those questions like, how were these pyramids built? And why were they built? And aliens involved somehow? And do they have any hidden messages or meanings? And are these structures aligned with the stars? And what do they have a meaning globally? Especially since I was traveling worldwide. What powers do they hold? And this fascination for the mysteries of the world was my true longing. And here is a picture, I promised I would give you one, is of me in front of the pyramids of Giza. And that was just a wonderful moment. I have some great memories, and I could do a whole nother presentation just on Egypt. And by the way, there's my camel, Valentino. Our longings should make us be willing to stretch ourselves, and it is a need to explore the mysteries of life. And when I talked about this is about travel, but also in life, you think about where do we stretch ourselves in our careers? Where do we stretch ourselves in our relationships? And, tapping into the mysteries of those and what it means to us on a deeper level. Something you cannot maybe do without. And here is a picture of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, where I traveled to in 2025. This Hindu Buddhist temple in Siem Reap is just one of the many temple sites. And it took me 5 days on a tuk-tuk to go around to all the different temples that were in that area. But this specific one is considered the eighth wonder of the world. And you'll see many, many pictures of it. Um, and what was special about this, again, is I was trying to catch the sunrise. So just as I was catching the sunset over the Nile, here I was trying to catch the sun rise. And I got up at 4:30 in the morning with my travel partner, and we made it out to the site with about 100 people. And it was very dark and the stars were out. And then all of a sudden, more and more people were showing up. And eventually you could see the sun coming up behind the temple. So a longing should bring a sense of awe and inspiration and beauty. It's a place that is truly beyond the norm. And Angkor Wat was definitely fitting the bill. Well, here is a beautiful picture of Monument Valley, which is in Utah and Arizona, depending on which side you go to. So it's right on the edge. And I have a little story behind this picture. So I had decided to, with my travel partner, we flew out to Las Vegas, rented a car, and drove through Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and then into Utah. And while I was planning this trip, this road trip that I was driving, I wanted to be right there in Monument Valley. And I wanted to spend the extra money to stay at the lodge and be able to be there at night because it is considered an international dark sky location. And I wanted to be able to see the stars and see the Milky Way. So I had all these intentions. I set my intention. Oh, this is what I really, really want. But sometimes the universe has a different plan for you. And I did get to drive that road below during the day. And as the day progressed, it got windier and windier and windier. And by the time we checked into the hotel to the lodge, and this is from the deck on at the lodge, and as you can see, the clouds came in. And not only did the clouds come in, but it started to thunder and rain and lightning. So I was actually seeing lightning strikes along the monuments, which was, again, truly amazing, something that you normally would not see. I wasn't expecting it. And then, of course, the rain. But then in the middle of the night, the rain started, well, actually, right before I went to sleep, the rain started to turn to snow. And when I woke up the next morning, there was 4 inches of snow on the ground. So not only did I get to see this during a beautiful sunny day, but I got to see it transform through the lightning and the rain and the clouds and the wind. So everything came in. So I got all the elements, the fire, the water, the air, and earth all together, and then the snow, and see the beautiful monuments with being snow covered. So again, let the universe give you what it wants. So I'm going to ask you a question. So get ready to write this down. What do you long for? And is it mystery? Is it excitement? Is it spiritual connection? Maybe you just want some peace and quiet in your life. Maybe you want less chaos. Um, maybe you want a sense of adventure. Maybe you want a spark. Maybe you want more love. Is it a feeling or a place or an experience or with a relationship? What is it that you truly, truly long for? And I'm going to give you a tip. A lot of times you will find that if you go back into your childhood and remember your most wonderful times, and for me, it was walking in the woods and being in nature. And I knew that that experience I needed to carry through with that excitement into my future life. So think about that. Okay, we're going to move on to phase two. Phase two, the call. And this is when your many longings are beginning to narrow down because we have all of these dreams. We have all of these crazy things that we would love to do, but we need to narrow it down and get that message that if I don't do it now, I never will. I'm going to miss out on it. Consider it that knock on the door, the ringing of the bell. And my painting bullseye, it represents the time when you finally hit it and um, and you got it. And you also realize that there are many reasons not to hit the bullseye, which, as you can see, it kind of has those like different angles and symbolisms around. It's like, oh, there's other things going on. There's other things that go on sometimes that stop us from reaching the bullseye is our fear. And it's true that fear will stop us. It will stop our motivation. And believe me, I've had it many, many times. But I've had a fear of illness. I've had a fear of money, politics, the weather, uh, even civil unrest, and just getting to a place. So when I'm preparing for a sacred travel or a trip, I do go through those fears. But you need to move beyond that fear and see a way to make it happen. And my trip to Ireland was like that. While trying to actually plan a summer trip, and at that time I was working a full-time job, and so was my travel partner. And we only had about a week to plan out something. And everything we planned, there was a roadblock. And you name it, it came up. And finally, we just decided, you know what, we're just going to give up. We're just not going to go anywhere. We're going to sit at home and hibernate. And and that's all of a sudden, sometimes when you sit back and just let the universe do its thing, the symbols and the synchronicities and the mystical interludes start to connect with you. And out of the blue, as soon as we did that, he got a message over his email saying that there was a deal going to Ireland and it fit within our budget, it fit within our time frame. Everything fell into place. And so I have to say that the light did shine through and the veil, and it was something that fell right into our laps, and we needed to go. And this is a picture of the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland, 2018. And it reminds me that sometimes you just need to jump when you get that calling. And that was the trip from the calling. Okay, this picture is somewhere on the west coast of Ireland, 2018, and let me explain it. To get the call, sometimes you just need to sit and listen, and things will come up, and have no expectations. Let things fall where they may, and the less expectations, the more mystical interludes and magical sacred moments will appear, just as this one did. Here is a beautiful Irish cemetery that I found while getting lost. And yes, we were lost. We got lost on a back road, and this temple, this chapel with this beautiful Celtic cemetery with all its stones was right there in front of us. And as you can see, the sun is shining through and the sun was getting ready to set. And it was truly the most magical moment, and this feeling of awe to see them over the ancient tombs. So again, once sometimes you are guided to where you need to be, and you have to embrace those moments. Here is a oh again, real touchy. Here is a picture that I took in 2014 of a beautiful place in Georgia, Jekyll Island, Georgia, that I have been to many times. And let me just ask you, when the calling comes, how will you actually know it? And when will you start to see the light shining through the haze? And so I just wanted to put that one out there because there's times where you just have to walk that path and let those wonderful sacred moments come get you. The third phase is the departure. And the departure is not only about packing your clothes and gathering up your important documents, but also it's a time of releasing the burdens and the worries and those fears behind that I had talked about. And the way you do that is you prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And to do that, you need wisdom and maybe even some light of the full moon. My painting, The Garden's Gate, represents the threshold that is at hand for us. And the full moon reminds us that it's time to release and let go. And during a full moon, that is the ceremonies that you do. You let go of old things, you let go of those fears. And so that's the reason why I thought this was appropriate for the departure. You might even see a semblance of a wise owl spirit on the pathway. because yes, we do need some wisdom here. And to do that, it's a good time to reevaluate those intentions that you had set before you actually open that gate and spend some time researching. If you're planning on a travel, you might want to research the language and the culture, the currency, maybe even tap into more of your plans. And this will help you to fight those fears and to be better prepared. So the picture on the right-hand side is of Tulum, Mexico in 2019. And when I was planning this trip to the Yucatan, I researched everything I could about this trip. And one of my fears was driving in Mexico. And I knew I would have to drive in Mexico. Um, and I wanted to get more clear and more clarity and confidence before I did it. And so one of the things I had read was that they have checkpoints in Mexico, and there is a good possibility you're going to get pulled over, and they are going to want any documentation of your driver's license, your passport, an international driver's permit, any type of documentation, you know, quickly available. And so that was one thing I did. I made sure that that was handy for me. And believe it or not, yes, I did get pulled over. But you know what? I was ready and got through that checkpoint with no problem. While in the Yucatan, the sacred site that I wanted to go to, which is amazing because it's in alignment, it's a pyramid. And in Egypt, I was in Egypt and then I went into the Yucatan to see another pyramid, was the pyramid at Chichen Itza. And when I prepared for this sacred journey to the Mayan ruins, I learned what time of the day also to arrive, when that sun was going to rise above the pyramid, so that I would be able to stand right in the right place to experience that magical moment. And I wanted the perfect moment. So I made sure also that I studied the layout of the complex, because it's a huge, huge complex. I made sure that I prepared myself. I had water and sunscreen and a hat. Plus, I learned a lot of meanings of the symbolisms and the structures and the carvings that were there. I even downloaded an audio guide on my phone, but you can also hire a guide. Sometimes I do the audio. And by studying that and being prepared, I was able to, one, save money, and two, it gave me the freedom. It gave me the freedom to roam around the complex at my own pace and really experience and embrace that moment. So, so again, the biggest thing is, and part of the departure is preparing and releasing those fears. And when you prepare for the journey, start doing your research. You might want to read any guidebooks, talk to other travelers in the area, um, join groups, maybe, like I said, download some apps. Rick Steves' travel app is a great one for Europe. You might want to watch movies about the area or YouTube videos. I'll watch YouTube videos. The more you prepare, the less fear you are going to carry because you are ready. Your intention is to give attention to the detail and get very clear. So one of my favorite movies is, and I would take this movie to a desert island, is Shirley Valentine. The movie is called Shirley Valentine. And it's a movie about a British woman who goes on vacation to Greece to actually find herself. And it's a beautiful movie. It's been made into a play as well. And when she leaves the home, when she gets ready to cross over the threshold, she repeats, passport tickets money, passport tickets money. And I use that phrase a lot when I'm traveling because, again, it reminds me, do I have all the things that I need? Okay, we're moving on to phase 4 now. Phase 4 is called the Pilgrim's Way, and this is the path to the divine and the source. Depending on your beliefs, your values, your faith, the Pilgrim's Way is asking you to make life more meaningful, more spiritual, more sacred. And to do this, you need to find the way through seeing more clearly, the way to hear more intently, to touch with your heart and your feelings of more compassionately, and the way of being in the moment with humility. This path is a sacred path within you as well as the sacred path outside of you. And here is where you are honoring and respecting your journey. My sacred painting called Sight is a representation of the Pilgrim's Way in finding that sight and remembering to look not just from these eyes that are kind of glazed over that I just got there. I'm going to do a check off my bucket list, but really, really see the people, see the landscape, see what's going on. Really, really connect with your hearing, your taste buds, your smells, all your different senses and the feelings that you get. This is one of the main parts in a forest therapy session when you go out into the woods. And I am so happy that this is part of the Pilgrim's Way as well. Um, and by the way, when you do it this way, you have a choice of asking yourself, am I just a tourist in search of some type of entertainment that's going to be fleeting? Am I a nomad adrift? Am I just kind of drifting through things in life? Or am I an explorer, or what I consider myself is a seeker who is awakening your senses and connecting and learning more that's going to help me on my journey? And by the way, the photo that's on the right-hand side is of the Tibetan female Buddha, Tara. And she is revered in many countries for her love and compassion for all sentient beings. And by the way, I was introduced to her meditative practice during COVID. And I was also introduced during COVID to Sacred Expressive Art. And I picked up the paintbrush for the first time. And my very first painting that I created was of the female Buddha, Tara. And her practice has been with me for the past 5, 6 years. And it's a daily practice that I am truly devoted to, as well as the paintings. And it connects with the green Tara and the 21 emanations of Tara. So as a seeker, I look for deities that awaken my senses. I was overjoyed when I found this golden statue of her in Colombia, Sri Lanka. Plus, when I was driving, or not actually driving, because I didn't drive in Sri Lanka, but we were traveling through, we would stop at different stone formations and temples and things of that sort, and I would see carvings of Tara. Recently, I found a statue of her when I was in Da Nang, Vietnam. And that was a surprise. I wasn't expecting her. And I was in a museum there and walked around the bend, and there was a wooden statue of Tara. And what was also amazing is that it stated that Tara, this specific statue, was Vietnam's most treasured international relic. Another deity who I began to search for on my travels is Kuan Yin, and that translates to observing the sound or cries of the human world. And she embodies passion, compassion, and mercy. And she often is depicted as a female figure, but she's also been depicted as a male figure. And she is also considered the protector of women, children, and those in distress. And this past January 2025, I had a chance to go to Thailand. And while in Thailand, Chiang Rai, I found her on top of this mountain. And yeah, I made a special point to get there to see her. And I found her in many other places as well. And with all that's going on in the world, there's so much chaos. There's so much that's going against humankind and children, and people in the world, so much distress. I found her in moments when I really needed that peace and tranquility in life. And to behold her helped me to just again come into that sacred space and honor what she represents. And it's wonderful when you're traveling and you look for things. They're like treasures. And she was a treasure that I was always looking for. Another important figure that I look for is the divine feminine in the Black Madonna and the Black Infant Jesus, who have been part of the mainstream Catholic traditions for centuries. And many pilgrims will go in search of these sacred statues. And when I was in Colombia, 2022, I actually took a follicular, it's like a tram ride up to the top of Montserrat. And I got to walk this beautiful spiritual path through the Stations of the Cross. And then at the top of the mountain was two things. One was this beautiful chapel, and the picture to the right is showing the Black Madonna and the baby Jesus, who I found in the chapel. But also, I found the scallop shell outside there as well. So, finding her and the infant Jesus are often associated with miraculous events, healings, protection, and devotion. So, I'm going to ask you to take a moment here to maybe think about in your journal what deities or gods or symbolisms do you draw on for your faith and your beliefs? And are you looking for compassion or healing or devotion? The Pilgrim's Way is a state of mind to actually manifest what you truly need in life. What brings you that peace, that contentment that you need? And so when you're going out in life, trying to find those things, and not only when you go out, but in your day-to-day life. Okay, phase five. Phase five is the labyrinth. Now, I've always been drawn to labyrinths all over the world, and finding them have become a passion of mine especially when I'm focused on a sacred travel. I go to what's called the Labyrinth Locator. It's a worldwide website where people can put in information about a labyrinth that is in an area. And that way I can make a special trip to get there and to walk a labyrinth. So, by the way, a labyrinth is not a maze. You will not get lost like a maze. There's no roadblocks or trails that take you into different areas. That's not what a labyrinth is. A labyrinth, in fact, is a pathway that is a geometric design that is over thousands of years old, and it leads you to a center, and then you come back out the way you came in. And most people will follow it with three options. One, or three thoughts in mind when you're walking in. So when you cross over the threshold to go into the labyrinth, you are at that time releasing. You're letting go of things that are holding you back, no longer serving you. And it might be like doing a life's journey, a review, and maybe you said things to people, or maybe you did things that you're not so happy about, and you want to start releasing those. You could also go in with a question that you want answers for. And then when you get to the center, that's a time to stop and pause and to meditate on what you're going to receive. And there you might receive some messages, you might receive some signs, you might be receiving some images. There is where you are receiving the love and the guidance that you may need. And then when you walk your way back out the pathway, They call that the return. So it's all those R words, return, rejuvenate, uh, and it's that time where it's like, okay, now I let go. Now I'm getting the messages. Now I know what I need to do to return. And during a walk, you can also use that for prayer, for healing, or look for answers to questions, or possibly, like I said, do a life review for renewing and also for forgiveness. It's a good time that if you need to ask not only for forgiveness of others, but also forgiveness for yourself. So the most famous labyrinth is in Chartres Cathedral in Chartres, France. I have never been there. It is on my bucket list. But the one um, is the let's see here. There, if you live in the Pittsburgh area, there is almost a dozen labyrinths within a 1 hour to 2 hour drive, and it's amazing how many there are in the area. Um, My painting that is to the left is called The Rite of Initiation, and it draws on this phase. So here, Phil Cosino asks us to tap into humanity's dark side and shadow side. Our pilgrimage may take us through trials and tribulations, and we may experience deep emotions in what is affecting our consciousness. The eagle totem that is also painted represents the need to have courage and strength, freedom, and the connection to the spiritual realm. And it encourages a visionary mindset and urges us to rise above our challenges with clarity and determination. My trip to Germany in 2023 got me to face the dark side of humanity. And during my pilgrimage to Dachau concentration camp, I was overwhelmed with grief and bewilderment and fear and disbelief. The museum provided details of thousands of camps across Europe. And I'll be totally honest, when I went into this museum, my experience was this big, not much. I knew there was concentration camps and I read a little bit about it and I might have seen a few movies, but I thought there were only a few concentration camps. I did not realize that there were thousands of concentration camps and labor camps across Europe, not just in Germany, but Poland, Hungary, France, Italy, everywhere. The people were being enslaved and executed in these places. So it was a very powerful message for me to wake up and see the atrocities that are going on to humanity and continue today against humanity. I think the other thing that hit me was that my ethnic background is in German, Polish, Hungarian, and Croatian. And these were major countries that were hit with these atrocities. And my grandparents were immigrants who came to the United States to flee from what was going on, and they left family members behind. And so while I was in that museum, I started to really think, like, which side were old, ancient, my family members, my ancestors from? Were they the ones who were causing this, or were they victims of this? And so again, I have to do some really soul searching of how that affects me and who do I want to be and how it aligns with my faith and my spiritual practice. In 2018, I did travel to the Smithsonian, and I highly recommend that if you haven't got to the Smithsonian Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., that you do get there. I didn't think I would go. I didn't think I could handle it, but it is very well put together and it does provide you with information that wakes you up to how Hitler started his reign. And, there are many, many memorial sites all over the United States and all over the world that honor the people who have been through these horrors in humanity, and they teach us to face them, and hopefully we learn from them. Um, I took a trip to Hawaii, and while there, I stopped off in Oahu in Pearl Harbor. And again, this was another pilgrimage to a place of remembrance. Um, Also, I did recently a 3-month trip to Southeast Asia, to Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And while there, I did also get a chance to check in with my shadow side, my dark side. Um, and beginning with visiting the Cope Museum in Vientiane, Laos, where their mission is to help survivors from thousands of leftover bombies that were dropped by the U.S. that are still laying in their farmlands. And just days after I'd left that museum, there was an announcement that two small 2-year-olds were playing in the farm field and they got blown up. And that's just, I mean, just to know that it still goes on. I made it to the killing caves of Battambang in Cambodia to see the horrors of the Khmer Rouge regime, and then also to the Vietnam War Museum, War Remnant Museum in Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam. And those violence and atrocities were, again, very overwhelming to see what had happened. So I realize when I walk away from this and I am part of this labyrinth phase that I cannot be numb. I have to again go back and connect to those senses, those feelings, the sights, the sounds, the smells of what is happening in the world. And, what can I do from my own standpoint? And everybody is different. Some people are very, very active and they want to protest or they want to write articles or they want to discuss things. And I realize if I tap into my soul self, it's really through prayer. I do a lot of prayer and meditation and devotion through my paintings, through my Tara work. And I am there again as a healer to send out this love and compassion to those in need. And I vow to, live a sacred life that is focused on doing no harm to others. So I'm going to ask you what, again, is sacred to you and what challenges do you face? Phase 6 is the arrival, and this is the great moment when you see and experience that final reward of your wandering. And the image that you longed for, that sacred experience you wish to embrace, and it is finally tangible. You can actually touch it. You can be there in that moment. You can embrace it. You can feel it. You're actually living it. And one of my passions was to be a part of a ceremony of compassion. And I got to experience that firsthand at the early morning Sabbat um, ceremony, the giving of alms in Luang Prabang, Laos. And this is where the Buddhist monks of any age, they collect food from people who line the streets early in the morning at a certain time. And they're given fruit and sticky rice. And now that's going to be their food for the rest of the day. And of course, if there's any left over, they give that to the poor as well. Um, this ceremony is deeply spiritual and it's a cultural practice. So my sacred painting, called the White Stupa, that's to the left, was based on a memory of watching a procession of Buddhist monks as they walked barefoot on a very, very hot day across the sandy paths, um, shading their head with, and this one gentleman, he was shading his head with this um, fan made out of the weeds. And he was walking to the White Stupa just as I was. And the White Stupa was a place to give prayer and blessings. And again, I felt like when I got there, I had arrived and he had arrived. And so you have this moment of awe that, oh, I'm finally here and I am so blessed. And here we're also giving blessings. My most challenging pilgrimage was climbing 5,500, yes, 5,500 steps to see the sunrise on top of Adams Peak in Sri Lanka in 2024. Um, so this is a renowned pilgrimage site that is popular for Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, and Christians. So when you're hiking this, and it's steps all the way up, you will see many, many people. I've seen fathers with children on their shoulders. I've seen very, very old people barefoot. I saw all people of walks of life going up this mountain, and it takes 4 hours. So you have to leave to see the sunrise. You have to leave at 2 o'clock in the morning and you to get there at 6 for the sunrise. So it takes you 4 hours to climb up the mountain. And of course, you got to come back down again. So it's another 4 hours down the mountain. But at the very top of the mountain is a temple where they have ceremonies. But then they also have there's this large uh, natural formed footprint. And so, of course, people go to see this footprint, to experience this footprint, because it's supposed to be um, very spiritual. And the Buddhists believe that that footprint is the footprint of Buddha, and the Hindus believe it is the footprint of Shiva, while the Muslims and the Christians believe it's the footprint of Adam as he's stepping out of Eden. And I have to say that that was the biggest challenge. I have arthritis in my spine. I have exertion-induced asthma. So the things that I had to do to fight that fear and to do that pilgrimage was, one, make sure I had my inhaler, my puffer with me. Number two was I had to not think about the pain and I had to pray each time I took a step. It was just one step, okay? Just another step. But along the way, I was praying. And I can say that when I got to the top of the mountain to see that sunrise, I arrived. So, not all pilgrimages are about temples and chapels and sacred ceremonies and things of that sort. As I said, you can go on a pilgrimage or a sacred journey that is truly just what is something you're going through in life. And it should be fun too. It should be enjoyable. So sometimes our arrival is not all about those museums and sacred sites, but sometimes you need to just go and enjoy the food, maybe some great music. And here's a picture of the famous poutine gravy covered French fries while I was in Montreal, Canada this past year. And there I was also to be at the 10-day free international jazz festival. The food was amazing. It was so good. The music was so magical and lively, and from musicians all over the world. I saw 40 different acts. Um, and with thousands of people, what was amazing was that the vibe was positive. People were helping other people. The music was upbeat and about trying to persevere in life and just very positive. And so that is truly, again, something we need to look for in life. What is going to inspire us? What is it? Again, we're going against the taste and the smells and the feelings, all of that, and embracing that in our sacred journey. So let me ask you, and again, get your pen and paper out. What compels you to go somewhere or to be with someone? And when would you know that you've arrived? Okay, we're going to move on to the final phase of Phil Cossino's book called The Bringing Back of the Boon. I realize we're going past that hour. Please hang in there. We don't got much further to go, and there's still some information here for you that I know will help you. So hang in there for another 10, 15 minutes, and I promise we'll be done. The Bringing Back of the Boon is about coming home. And that can be a physical coming home, or it can be a spiritual coming home, or an emotional coming home. And so my sacred expressive art piece to the left is called The Penguin. And there are some hidden meanings in this painting. The spiritual meaning of the penguin is that it symbolizes community, loyalty, adaptability, and resilience. And you think about it, penguins thrive in harsh environments and they have strong family bonds. So bringing back the boom is returning home and sharing your epic stories with your family and friends. It's remembering your adventures and all that you learned. It's also reconfirming your beliefs, your values, your faith. And you might also want to revisit those intentions that you set. Do they still align with you? Did you lose what you not need? And did you remember who you are? And maybe it's a time also to maybe create or recreate rituals and ceremonies that are going to keep that spiritual, sacred light alive and moving. So in my painting, I also have some little tears coming, not only from his heart, because his heart is like he's so happy to be home. He's happy for all that he experienced. But there's a tear there that's saying, oh, it's a tear of joy. I'm so glad to be here. But then he has some tears coming out of his eyes because it's like, oh, that journey is done. Okay. But you can always go back and relive it. So your sacred journey is embracing all the experiences that you've had. Um, and I recommend that if you do go on a trip, or if it's just something where you're at home and you're building relationships, gathering up pictures and memories, cards, things of that sort. If it's something about a career, you might be keeping a vision board of things that are going on with that career. But here specifically, my experiences of my sacred travels was, one was recently the balloon ride that I took over Van Vieng, Laos, and seeing the sunrise again, sunrises and sunsets, or spark me. And then a 2-day boat ride that I took down the Mekong River, um, without having phone access, and just watching life was the most peaceful experience that I have enjoyed in a long time. Now, the picture to the far right is not my picture. It is a dream picture for the future, but it reminds me that I need to enjoy local customs and culture, the music, the art, the food, the people, and just embrace them because we are all so different, but we're all still very much the same. It's also a time of honoring. So you might have traveled to visit family or people that you've never met before that are friends or family. You might have also used this time to honor your family and heritage. So do you keep a photo album? Do you keep photos? Things of that sort. Do you stay in contact? It's honoring your religious faith and your beliefs, and connecting to those. And then also the people that have gone, not only people that are in your family or friend circle, but maybe there are people that are gone that you find to be your guides or your muses in life. And you might have spent that time honoring by reading a book or watching a movie or bringing up pictures of a trip that you've taken to go see them. Your experience is also about your spiritual awakening. We opened up this portal This pilgrimage should have opened something up, all the phases that you've gone through to create more balance in your life, to possibly finding enlightenment, and also connecting with spirit. And again, I'm going to ask you, do you remember who you are? Because that's really what this is all about. Your pilgrimage should be your story that helps you to remember who you truly are and understanding what is your passion in life, what you need to face, what fears you need to overcome, and what have you accomplished, and how are you going to move forward, again, knowing who you are. So my last slide here is what I consider the last and true final phase is gratitude. And I'm going to say that no matter where I go in the world, I know no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, I am truly grateful for my health, my home, my friendships, all the memories that I've gathered up and the adventures I have gone on, the happiness and peace and tranquility that I want. I am so grateful for the practices that I have in painting and Tara and walking in nature and my faith, my true faith, and most of all, my family. And by the way, that's a picture of me with two of my wonderful grandchildren. And these are the two youngest, Avi and Isaac. And again, I want you to take a moment to think about all the things that you are grateful for in life and maybe set up a practice that every night before you go to bed that you maybe recite some things that you are truly grateful for. So I want to wish you a very, very lovely day. And I want to thank you for your time and staying with me through this. And I hope that you will find some time to embrace your sacred journey. So I wish you a blessed and sacred pilgrimage. And I hope to talk with you soon. If you ever want to reach out to me, you can reach me at khaywiser@gmail.com or check me out on Facebook at Kelly Haywiser, Haywiser. Okay, well, you have a wonderful, wonderful day. And again, thank you.